All right, everyone. So we'll get started. The first session today, we're going to do training, education, and competency, followed by going into what I described yesterday as advanced management techniques, and then ending out with some interesting cases. So up first, Dr. Bishoy Zachary will be joining us. He is out of Portland, Oregon, where he's an intensivist. He is also the chair of education for us at ELSO. So he is going to be discussing the value of standardization of ECMO. So please help me in welcoming him.
Thank you very much, Liz. Good morning, everybody. Great, thank you. All right, good morning, everybody. So today I'll be discussing the value of having a global and standardized ECMO curriculum as the basis for ECMO education. As Liz mentioned, my only disclosure relevant to this talk is I'm chair of education for ELSO. So this is moving by itself. Okay. So a little bit of background. So as everyone knows, there's been an explosion in the number of ECMO centers globally. Of course, the improvement in technology, supportive evidence, and improved, I'm not sure why this is moving forward. And supportive evidence have fueled this increased uptake. Unfortunately, there still remains significant variability in the outcomes and in the complication rate of ECMO globally. The question that we have before us is, now I'm having trouble moving forward. Can you guys advance my slide? Thank you. So the question is, how can we improve ECMO outcomes globally? Of course, research is obviously a big part of this, but my argument is that the best use of resources is actually in ECMO education. With education, we have a chance to improve things such as patient selection, circuit management, patient care, and ECMO emergency troubleshooting, which is likely the most bang for the buck in terms of improving outcomes. To do this, of course, you need ECMO training and ECMO credentialing. And ELSO, for a long time now, has promoted standardized education for ECMO practitioners, as well as certification criteria for people who provide ECMO care. Nonetheless, and this has been for years, but nonetheless, the current state is quite poor. This was a survey of North American centers, and only 57% had any credentialing criteria for ECMO practitioners, and 17% for re-credentialing criteria. We also have a global survey, it's not published yet, where we looked at centers from all over the world, and the results are actually similar. Less than 50% have any form of ECMO credentialing criteria. And the problem, though, that people report as the barriers for this are two things. There is no standardized curriculum, so every center basically has to come up with their own decision about what objectives look like. And there's also no global method of certification. And this is a difficult thing to place on centers to develop from scratch. And so this is what led to the development of ELSO-Ed. So ELSO-Ed is a global task force. 40 practitioners have expertise in ECMO care as well as ECMO education. The task force is made up of experts globally, so there's representation from all 5 ELSO chapters, and this is important to ensure that we have global representation, as well as practitioners from all forms of ECMO specialties and disciplines, again, to make sure that we meet all the criteria required to provide good ECMO education. And this is what they were tasked with, to try and identify the international ECMO education needs and outline mechanisms for global standardization and opportunities for international collaboration. The details I'm about to put forward, as well as the development, are all stem from this paper here. This was a position paper we put out a couple of years ago, outlining all the opportunities for standardization and collaboration within ECMO education. I'm going to focus primarily on curriculum development, but there's really 7 areas that we focused on, and this identifies how we can standardize all 7 of those. So in brief, this was the summary of the ECMO-Ed task force recommendations. And I'm going to focus primarily on the first one, which is generating content and specifically a curriculum. And so the goal here was to organize an international multidisciplinary team to develop a standardized curriculum incorporating both the knowledge and psychomotor components developing learning objectives, and defining minimal competency of the ECMO practitioner. So, how do you develop a curriculum? So as you guys know, ECMO has been around since 1972, was the very first successful ECMO. And believe it or not, in those 40, 50 years since, there's been no standard curriculum. Every hospital buys an ECMO machine, offers ECMO care, and there's really no standard way of how they can do this, what knowledge and skills are required, and what certification is needed. And really the foundational element of doing anything is really having a standard curriculum that everyone agrees on as defining minimal competency. So there are ways to develop a curriculum in an academic and rigorous manner. This is both within the medical field as well as outside. And so based on this and based on the expertise in the ELSOED task force, we put forth a proposal based on developing a curriculum using current methodology and trying to hit the key components of Bloom's taxonomy in developing this curriculum. Again, both on the knowledge side as well as the psychomotor side. These are basically the flow chart of how we proceeded to do this. So basically, the goal was to develop a curriculum and have learning objectives. There were 2 work groups developed, one for the knowledge component and one for the psychomotor component. As mentioned, both of these included international representation with multidisciplinary participants. Using Delphi methodology, both groups were able to develop a curriculum with learning objectives, and these were prioritized based on what was felt to be minimal competency. Once there was a curriculum that was agreed upon, we then moved on to developing an assessment tool, again for both the knowledge portion as well as the psychomotor portion, which was subsequently tested and validated, and eventually they will be published for global application and utilization. We often get a lot of feedback. And unfortunately, this process takes a long time. The knowledge component took about 2 years to develop a curriculum. And we do get a lot of feedback saying, why are you guys spending so much time doing this? Is it really worth the investment? And the argument is yes, absolutely. And the reason is, having a curriculum really forms the foundational basis for everything else you do in terms of education. This is our vision, using this curriculum to develop online education, which will be discussed in a little bit, which then can be applied and incorporated into courses and workshops worldwide, offers the opportunity for educational research, and of course, as mentioned, forms the basis of practitioner certification. Practitioner certification is a high stakes endeavor. If you're going to say this is the minimal competence required to be an ECMO practitioner, there needs to be good evidence to support this. And so this is really the reason that we went through this in a very rigorous and academic manner in order to be able to provide the support needed for global uptake. In very brief, we have used this curriculum now to develop an online course on ECMO. This covers all the didactic curriculum and learning objectives. It's highly interactive. It's globally available, and the feedback has been great. So this is the next step, and we're going to be building on this. So in brief summary, obviously a lot of work has gone into this, and a lot of people are to be thanked, but this is basically where we're at this point. So we currently have a global standardized ECMO knowledge curriculum, and that's implemented. The ECMO psychomotor curriculum is in development. We just have consensus on the Delphi at this point, so we're moving on to developing the certification portion. The online ECMO course is now available for people to participate in, and ECMO practitioner certification is now also available and will be discussed by my following speaker. Happy to take any questions. Or are questions saved for the end? Okay, I'll take questions later.
All right, so up next, Janelle Badulak is joining us from Seattle, Washington, where she's at Harborview Medical Center. And she is the mastermind behind a lot of what Bishoy had shared, so a key piece in trying to figure out exactly how we bring together certification exam and bring forward that concept, and opened me to a wild world of med education and blueprinting exams and all sorts of things I never knew I wanted to learn about. So she's going to go into the deep dive into what exactly this practitioner exam is and all the thought that went into get us to where we're at today. So please welcome Janelle.
Hi guys, I'm going to see if I can wrangle this slide advancer or not. Okay, cool. So thanks for the introduction. Really excited to network and meet so many of you guys, especially interested in education. So I wanted to kind of start off by talking about what is this ELSO adult ECMO practitioner certification? Like why did we create it? Bishoy gave us a really nice kind of foundation as to the needs assessment of why go through all of this to create this test. And essentially what it is it's not just one test, it's demonstration of basically all the key components of what would actually make you have the minimal competency to take care of ECMO patients, right? So it's going through a standardized didactic course where we spend a lot of time developing learning objectives, figuring out what we were going to actually put in that course. And then you either taking an ELSO course or a course that addresses all of those learning objectives. And that you also received some form of in-person simulation training, right? Because ECMO is a team sport, it's interactive, it's hands-on. So were you able to participate in simulation, which we're going to hear from our next speakers, and did it cover the real essential simulation scenarios that we thought were really important, that if you're going to be able to care for ECMO patients, you should be familiar with? And then were you able to have enough bedside experience, right? Because theoretical knowledge is great, but as we all know, we do need an apprenticeship model. Like you do need to be able to be at the bedside caring for people and for a certain amount of time to at least really try to solidify what you've learned in the theoretical realm and you've read and you've done online courses or in-person courses and sim, and then be able to tie that together in Bloom's taxonomy and show that you can do it. So the culmination of this, once you've been able to go through this entire curriculum, kind of like, getting a degree or like finishing a residency or finishing training in nursing, would then say, I've got all of these requirements, now I'm ready to sit for the exam. So the first exam that ELSO has developed is this knowledge assessment, meaning a multiple choice question exam. So how did we build this, right? Because just like Bishoy said, when you have an exam, it has consequences. And you want to make sure that if you're saying, yeah, you passed or didn't pass, that we have a test that's actually testing what we thought it would, because there's plenty of garbage tests out there, right? You've taken a test and you're like, I don't know what the right answer is and I'm an expert in this field. Or like, I can't quite figure out that question and what they're really asking me. So I just wanted to kind of just show you, give you a view behind the curtain of how we develop standardized exams and what the science is that goes into it. So the first thing you start with an exam is a construct, like what is the purpose? What are you trying to test? And for us with ELSO is that we wanted to be able to create a test that would help us understand, can you demonstrate the minimum level of competence and knowledge required for the practice of ECMO? And as Bishoy talked about, we are also concurrently developing, and they're nearly done, which is very exciting, a psychomotor skills checklist to assess your skills, right? So with knowledge, assessing do you know, and then with the skills checklist, can you do? So how do you create a high quality exam? This is something where we would introduce the concepts of reliability and validity. So validity evidence is basically to say whether or not something's accurate, right? And that it's testing something and the answers that people are giving you, if it's the actual correct answer, making sure that that's actually true. And then reliable means that it's that it's going to give you the same result kind of over and over again. So this is a common schematic to demonstrate the difference between reliability and validity, or reliability really being a part of validity. And that if you're consistent with the one on the left, but so basically it's testing, and people with the same level of expertise are going to get the same answer, and people with a different level of expertise will get a different answer. But the answer is actually not right. This is one of those examples of a garbage exam, like people are getting it wrong because they're reading into the question and it's misleading, really, or the answer is just straight up wrong. Also, it could be valid, where there's right answers that are actually right and you're testing what you think you are, but you can't discriminate between people of a high performance level and a low performance level. It's just kind of all over the place. So what we want is the figure on the right, where we've got we have good discrimination between high performers, low performers, and what we're actually testing is what we want to know. So it seems like obvious, but it's actually really hard when you build an exam and you want to discriminate. So there's all kinds of stuff that goes into this. We have an expert panel that can write quality questions. We have to train people how to write questions. We have to blueprint those questions to learning objectives that we had to build using consensus methodology. We have to learn a bunch of psychometrics and work with our PhDs to figure out, are these things able to tell the difference between those high performers and those low performers? Are the questions hard, and it's hard because the question sucks? Or are they hard because the question is actually getting at a really difficult point in physiology that's essential for ECMO? And then we have people go through these questions, and our experts, and they kind of talk out loud and say, this is what I'm thinking when I go through this question, and we can see how their mind is working and making sure that they're actually thinking about the thing we thought we were asking. We have a couple of things, so this is a living, breathing thing, right? When you take board exams or certification exams, they have to stay up to date, so we'll always be curating the questions in the question bank, and we'll be looking at the question performance. And we're going to compare scores. Ongoing research, right, is always important. And maybe scientific or clinical research gets a lot of attention, but med ed research, we want to make sure it's sound too, so that we're giving you a really high quality product. Are the people who are doing really good in sim the people who are also scoring really well on a didactic test? That's really important to know, because that really should track together when we give someone a certification, to say, yes, this person is awesome at ECMO. Go ahead and hire them. You don't even have to train them or worry about complex credentialing. They come with the whole package. So there's multiple phases that we did with developing this exam, starting with consensus methodology, laying out the learning objectives, writing the test, reviewing the test through multiple iterations, building a pilot, testing it, and now we're really excited that we're here with ELSO certification. So our project is finally available. So how did we actually do this? We started with the ELSO course that had been taught for quite a while, went through all the learning objectives and basically ranked them to get rid of bad ones, put in new ones, prioritize them, because we know we can't cover absolutely everything that there is to, know about ECMO. And then multiple iterations for consensus, so where you get 12 experts across the room, across the world, I wish across the room, and then make sure that they actually agree. And then you have to write an exam. Who's written questions for national board exams, right? There's a training process that goes into that, and it's really pretty complex. So we have authors from all over the world. We want the expertise, but not everybody comes with a master's in education or coursework in education. So we have to teach them, assign them a multiple choice question to write, have a bunch of editors basically give them feedback, and then ask them to write more questions, so that this is a learning process. And I can't thank our authors enough for basically learning how to write MBME questions. Then we finally can incorporate all the edits, and then we have a multiple choice question exam. We also did this with simple recall. So the same thing, just this iterations over and over again of writing questions, refining them, testing them. And then we have to map them to say, like, is our test actually going to cover all the objectives that we wanted? Like, or is it just like cherry picking a couple objectives and you just happen to get lucky that those are the only like couple things you learned? So then the last piece of this, or the second to last, is we take these questions, we basically make sure that they can pass muster with some of these incredible mentors across the world, and then make sure that they're actually, the right question or the right answer is actually right. So this was, again, lots of Delphi methodology. And then we have a pilot, and we had some really great volunteers to say, yes, I will take this test and sit here for more than an hour and try it out, which is really important. And then we basically get data. How are people doing? Are they passing the test? Are they not? And then what are the psychometrics of that test? So essentially what we did is that we removed really difficult questions, questions that can't discriminate between experts and people who are poor performers, and then we had a final exam. And then that's the final exam that you guys have access to. So this was a huge development team from all over the world, and all chapters of ELSO were involved, making sure that there weren't confusion about even units and language, all of the details you can think of. So how do you actually do this? You would create an account on ELSO Academy, and then you would submit all of the information that, yep, I've done the didactic course, simulation, clinical skills, and then you would be able to say, I'm ready to, and enough, clinical time, simulation, and didactics, I'm ready to sit for this exam. And then then you would be taking our exam with ExamSoft. And this is the same software that they use for the American Bar exam. So it's a really wonderful tool that we can use to gather data, and it has really good security for a higher consequence exam. So what's the value? You have someone who is applying to your program potentially, and you need to be able to know what are they, capable of. Like it says, I'm an ECMO specialist on my resume, or I'm an intensivist and I've cared for ECMO patients in the past. And you can move them from maybe an unknown entity, is this I've touched like 2 ECMO patients before and did like a local course that was like 2 hours, or did I do something comprehensive? And you can change this unknown entity into someone who carries ELSO certification, and then that meets a certain standard, and that helps you hire those people and understand what standard they've met. That's what we're trying to do for the community. So in summary, the standardized curriculum is important because it helps us hold everyone to a certain standard and know what we're getting. What you're getting is minimum competence in ECMO patient management. And in order to be able to develop that, we've put years into rigorous validity, reliability evidence and consensus methodology, among many other things with med-ed methodology, to give you a high quality product using a multi-professional international team. Thanks.
I told her thanks for the PTSD of remembering all those steps that we just have gone through for the last few years, putting all that together, but joking, it was a lot of fun and a big learning curve for that. So I'm inviting up now our next 2 speakers. So Matus and Marek are joining us from Poznań University in Poland. And I had the excitement of watching these guys in action in London. So they, if you guys were part of EuroELSO, anyone here, they were doing some of the sim breakouts. And they are going to really be talking to us about the art, in my opinion, of simulation. And it's really beyond even the technical training and being able to kind of take it to the next level. And hopefully they'll instill some ideas for your programs as you're thinking about getting sim going. So gentlemen, thanks for joining, and I'll let you take it away from there.
Good morning. Thank you, Elizabeth, for that great invitation. It's a big pleasure for us to be here and to be a part of the ELSO family. maybe it looks strange that we are two persons in that presentation, but we are twin brothers, and we developed our ECMO for Greater Poland region project. My name is Mateusz Poślecki. I am cardiac surgeon, and I am working in Poznań University and Department of Cardiac Surgery and Transplantology.
Good morning. My name is Marek Dąbrowski. Actually, my background, I'm paramedic, advanced paramedic. But right now, since 15 years, I'm facilitator, I'm educator, I'm teacher. I love my job, and I love debriefing. Okay, let's do it.
Stroke.
Where is stroke? Okay, that's the beginning. As you know, we are from Poland. Poland is in the central of Europe. Right now, the whole situation in Europe is really difficult. We are really proud that we developed the ECMO program in our country for our physician. The beginning was we want to do for physician, for nurses, for perfusionists, for paramedics, but actually we will tell you why we organize first program for doctors. We live in Poznań and we working on Poznań University of Medical Sciences. This is the west part of Poland, and this is not true that we have in Poland white bears on the roads. If we're thinking about the bears, we have actually the brown ones, but not so many, and this is really difficult if we want to show our kids in Poland real bears. We need to play a role. We need to use a simulation tool. We need to learn on self how to be a bear. One's white, one browns. This is our city, and we want to share with you that Poland is a great country, and we can make nice things and share with our story. Our story began with high-fidelity simulation, and we know that this is very important to do everything on high level with hyper-realistic, to use the realistic tools, realistic method, real physician, real nurses, real paramedics, real perfusionists, and to create the corporation and the hyper-realistic teamwork. This is important. And if we will create the process of high-fidelity simulation, and very often in situ simulation, what is really important, we will have effect.
And now a little bit about the simulation. Simulation, what is it? In fact, we know that the medical simulation started in 1960 with resuscitation and anesthetic simulators. ECMO simulation started in the millennium, in the broad of the millennium, but the first publication that proved that it is a variable tool started in 2006. What is it? It can be, of course, improvement or testing tool. Maybe it can be train tool. Maybe sometimes there are people that are responsible for that simulation. Maybe sometimes it can be the place. It can sometimes be the weapon. We remember that in 2009, the World Health Organization recommended the simulation training in ECMO as a valuable tool to fight with the new vision of the new pandemic. But our story starts in 2016. We are living in Greater Poland region. It's about 3.5 million inhabitants. And about the facts in 2016, we have no ECPR project, we have no VV-ECMO project, we have no hypothermia support with ECMO, we have no NECMO, DCD, we have no ECMO patient transportation, only some incidental venous arterial post-cardiotomy in our department. And I remember that we tried to collect all our devices for ECMO, and it was the number of 15. It was a lot, but they were never used. I remember that in 2016, my wife was writing her thesis about the medical law and post-mortal donation. And she asked me why there is no any project of DCD donation in Poland. And then I called to my brother, to Mark, and I asked him if we can prepare the algorithm for DCD ECMO donation.
Yeah, and when we start with the first algorithm, we decide to, for the beginning, we want to create first scenario, but the real scenario in real place with real professionals. And all professions would, all people, all persons from the teams, they've been on the shift, and we informed dispatch center that there was an accident and cardiac arrest in public place, and then some bystanders initiate resuscitation. They call for ambulance team, paramedics, they continue that ALS process. And after that, we decide with criteria to send our victim, our patient, to the hospital to start or to make the beginning of idea to donation after cardiac death. And our simulation, our first in situ simulation was actually 4 hours and 11 minutes. And then we decide to summarize everything and to check where is a good points and where is a bad points. We thought about debriefing. We have a lot of experience with debriefing because we're working with students, but this is some kind of academic area, an academic environment. And this is really different to create debriefing for someone who's know more than you, someone who has more experience than you, someone who is better than you, and someone who has or make something faster than you. How to create that debriefing, that will be really important to continue process of education. This is our first team during first simulation scenario, in situ simulation scenario. There's not exactly all people on this picture because when we count all of the people was more than 32 person involved in that first scenarios.
I remember our costs. It was our fun, our improvisation, and $10 for vascular equipment, for vascular pipe from the building market. And then we started to think about the beautiful hub and spoke conception. So we developed our hub with education center as sorry, it's not so great, but next will be better. So we developed our education center for artificial life support and patient safety as an accelerator for knowledge creation, diffusion, absorption, and what's the most important for knowledge transfer in our hub of artificial life support in Poznań. It was the first step for probing simulation. The probing simulation or testing simulation or creating simulation, it can be summarized as a translational simulation, and we should remember that it collects the human resources, the skills, the innovation, the other institutional collaboration. From the translational simulation is a short way to translational innovation that can be realized by the mechanism of improvement of identification of the potential obstacles by the creation of the new and rather or difficult procedures, and to give some kind of solutions that can improve our outcomes. Here are our results. S is, I don't know, is not in the same line, but it's not important. How we try to collect all our knowledge, clinical and educational or cooperational results of our project. But one of the most important part, it was that educational part. So we create artificial life support at Patient Safety Center in our STEAM Center, and we are co-creators of Poznań University of Medical Sciences Artificial Life Support also course.
When we start with this first in situ simulation, Mateusz told you about our first circulatory and blood duct pump system for our dummy. We used the dummy of a Lerdal company, that was the ALS mannequin or ALS dummy for advanced life support. But everything what we use for simulation was really low cost and around $10. We bought everything in Home Depot, something similar like in the States, and that we understood that even if we're thinking about high fidelity simulation, we don't need very often high fidelity equipment for simulation. We need imagination, we need creation to work in a specific area with people who are working every day in that environment. Our project started in 2018. We made 26 courses. Actually, first of all, was 22 trainings, every for 12 participants. But we found some extra money inside the project, and we extended like 4 more. We should just right now in September close our project, but we again found some extra point of cash, and we asked our Ministry of Health to make more 8 courses, and we're still like working for ELSA endorsement. That's like next 8 meetings, and that will be around 96 person. And actually, yesterday I understood that we use different tools for that training, like materials, books, lectures, workshops, session, scenarios, but debriefing after is really important. Only what we need to decide is how much time we have to discuss about what happened during scenario. If we not have too much time, we will usually use a feedback method. If we will have more time, we will focus on debriefing, and we can talk about emotion, we can make some descriptive phase, we can analyze a lot of things during scenario, what happened, and at the end we can start thinking about some application for the future. But yesterday I understood that we spent almost $3 million. $3 million for that project from EU grant. And the question is like, what is worth it? I know if we will have more next $6 million, we will continue that project again and develop again more. This is very important. But the decision right now, what we're thinking is to make training for ECMO teams, not only for physicians, only for whole teams to will working like groups, people around the VIP, because our VIP is our very important patient in the middle between us. This is our sim center. This is some kind of couple pictures from our trainings. And actually our take-home message. We built 6 years ago something.
Beautiful project.
Yeah, a beautiful project and something brand new with high fidelity simulation scenarios for our physicians, but we also like developing some part of the project for nurses, for perfusionists, for paramedics.
We create all the procedures for VV, for VA ECMO, for NECMO, for first DCD donation in Poland, for hypothermia support, for ground and air transportation, and we continue our project during the COVID-19 pandemic. I think that it was our valuable part in the COVID-19 pandemic fight.
It's good to have dreams, and it's good to have brothers, sisters, or close friends. Together, everyone achieves more all the time. Without that, we will not build a high level of project from our perspective. And also we believe that passion, commitment, quality will give professionalism, and that all of the things must play in one team every time.
I remember that in 2019, ELSA trust us. So we believe that it was the most important part in our adventure. Thank you very much.
If someone wants to travel to Poland, we would like to invite you to our sim center. Be brave even if you not pretend to be. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so I'll have the first two speakers join me up here to field any questions. Please feel free to step up to the mics and fire away at these guys.
Hi, my question is for Bishoy and Janelle. I'm a cardiac surgeon, I'm consultant cardiac surgeon in Egypt. I have a question for the certificate first. This certificate, I don't know what's behind the certificate. I mean, later on, you will ask people not to work in ECMO until they have the certificate or not. This is my first question. Yeah.
So, okay, cool, thanks. Yeah, an important question. So the idea is that we are not a regulatory body with ELSO, right? And so credentialing at the hospital level is completely up to the hospital, right? And we're not a regulatory body in any country either. So the idea of ELSO certification is not to prohibit someone from practicing ECMO in the absence of certification. The idea is that we have set a standard for what we think is minimum competency for ECMO practice. So whatever the hospitals with credentialing or the national bodies for regulatory bodies in different countries want to do with that is up to them. So we foresee that potentially in the future, when a standard is set, it may end up becoming something that these regulatory bodies would like to use in order to basically, if they want to regulate something more, which we keep hearing about it, in particular in the United States, similar to LVAD centers, for example. So we don't know what it will be. We don't have any intention of trying to regulate, because that's not our job. Essentially just doing all of the years of work to create a standard that we hope will be useful to the community, and then we'll raise up everyone practicing ECMO to a certain standard.
Okay. Do you know about the Paris ECMO diploma, for example? Every country, they have their certificate or their diploma of ECMO. Did you have any connection with them that's to find the best curriculum, the best globally certificate? So this can be a second step. I mean, not only US, because we are in the whole globe. So we need a standard not in US first, only we have also in Europe, we have somewhere else. So it's completely different. I have already the ECMO diploma from Paris, for example. I don't know, I'm interested in ELSO, I'm interested in the course, I'm interested in the simulation, but I don't know what's the difference. I mean, what can I get, what's the benefit I can get more? I'm going to, I don't know. This is my question, I don't know what's the difference. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, so within each, and there are, there's a lot of countries in the world, right?
Yeah.
Of course. And so within each country, there are different processes for saying, okay, this is our standard, or have you gone through the appropriate steps to make something up to snuff for whatever we think methodology should be for certification. And so it can be a challenge because it's not really realistic to be able to coordinate with every single country's individual details. The goal with ELSO is using, basically, it's not US-centric, to be really clear, actually. More than half of the people developing the exam are not from North America. So we have representation from all of our ELSO chapters. And we're hopeful that having the insight from our representation as a global entity will help us get insight into what the local challenges or needs actually are. So I couldn't tell you the specific difference. I can tell you what's in ELSO certification and what standard that meets. And then each individual country or hospital can get in, is welcome to that information, because we give that. I mean, obviously we want that to be widely available, to say these learning objectives, this training, and detailed specifics, and then figure out what they would like to do with that, I think.
Yeah, just to add to that, I mean, we recognize, of course, as ELSO, we recognize that there's very high quality courses out there. I didn't mention this, but one of the things that we're doing is also something called ELSO endorsement, where we go and assess different courses by invitation. And if they meet the curricular requirements, they get ELSO endorsements, and they are part of the potential pathway for achieving this certification. And Liz, you can speak better to this, and specifically about the Paris course, if that's the question.
Yeah, no, and your question is perfect, and I think you have identified what we targeted was a need, because there is a lot of ECMO education happening. There's a lot of courses when you search that say ECMO training course, but what does that mean? Yeah. It's a 1-day course, it's a 3-day course, it's a 5-day course, it has simulation, it doesn't have simulation. So what we wanted to do through ELSO was partner with all these great training opportunities, create a standard, and then Poland is one example. So they had a surveyor come on site, they met all the curricular requirements, they did a fantastic job with their simulation, and so now they have the ELSO endorsement logo. And so for those of you who are, in the future will be seeking, where do I know has this high quality, validated, standard education, once you see that ELSO endorsement logo, you know you're going to a course that has gone through those rigors and has achieved that level. And that helps for all of you that are looking for an educational opportunity. When you see that, then there will be a comfort in knowing that that diploma means that it's gone through that process. If you go through a course that has that logo, then you also know that you have been to a course that will help prepare you for the certification exam, because it's covered the same learning objectives that Janelle and the team used in order to create the bedrock for that knowledge assessment. And so we're really trying to help exactly what you just said, is there's a lot of great courses. And if you are sitting here and you have a great training course and you'd like to be able to kind of join forces and be able to say, hey, I have spent a lot of time creating this course and I'd love to be able to have that so people all over the world can join, because part of what we said in here is it's access to high quality education. Yeah. So we can't just have them in one geographical location. We need centers, and I'm sure that it'll come up, but we relaunched. Obviously COVID prevented us from sending site surveyors, but we already have 7 endorsed sites, and they started off, and actually ironically right now none of them are in North America, but I know Mumbai, India was our first one to go, Monterrey, Mexico, Bangkok, Thailand, all have been the first since the pandemic opened up an opportunity. So lots of great opportunities to get those, and you hit the heart of what we're trying to do with this, is to make you feel like you understand what that piece of paper is.
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Please.
Yeah, hi. I'm Avi Makar from Oklahoma Children's. Thanks for the excellent talk, panel. My question is again regarding certification process. I love the idea that there is a standardized process, especially for the programs who are new. They don't have a lot of resources for education, so it's a great resource. But what about like pediatrics, neonatal, and PICU settings? And I like this idea about the endorsement too, until we get to the point where we have this robust system for NICU and PICU settings. Do we already have work in place in terms of endorsing some of the, say, some of the good courses that are running in the country?
I can field that one for you, and I think Peggy and Tav in the crowd up at the front, ladies, sorry, you get to wave your hand around neopeds. So we have been getting a wave of interest as well in developing that for neopeds, and so because of the beautiful job that you saw in mapping out what we did with the adult curriculum, Now what's coming is replicating that giant process for neonatal pediatrics, and it'll be the same concepts where there'll be a knowledge track, a skills track, certification. We already trademarked that we'll have acronyms for a NeoPeds exam, so it's already in the works. But for those of you neonatal pediatric providers, you can imagine the breadth of content. We'll have to try to figure out how in the world do you cover such a wide range of populations and do it justice to get consensus and figure out what the top ones are. So sorry ladies for pointing you out, because we will need a monster team as well. You know, you saw what Janelle put up there of, I will reiterate, we want global representation, so we need to make sure that we have every chapter, every region chiming in with their unique needs and interdisciplinary. So the other part that I think I really want to stress in there is that this certification exam was written for all comers in ECMO. ECMO is a team sport, so this is not one specialty specific. The writers and the thought came about to say that this is an exam that I think there's equal entrance and a bare minimum competency that all practitioners can join. So a lot of work, and I made them raise their hand, and you guys are going to hate me for it, but those are the ladies you want to try to hit up to try to jump on the teams and start figuring out how we can make this come to life.
You were saying something.
Another thing I may add to that is tomorrow morning we're doing a meet and greet with all the steering committee chairs, and education is one of the most active committees with ELSO right now with all of these educational products. So I really encourage you to come tomorrow at 7 and kind of, if you're interested, because yeah, it takes a very big team and finding the people who are interested in this to build it, because then we can talk about some of the other projects that that Bishoy has on the horizon too.
Yeah, I feel like this is something that definitely need addressed. I can tell you for the CHNC ECMO group, we have talked about that. Right now, there is not like a standard way, okay, how do you define competency for someone who's going to serve on ECMO team? Mm-hmm. So I think all this work will definitely take us a long way. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, Jeanne Corriveau from Montreal McGill University. I was wondering if you could hint us on what your psychomotor skill certification would look like, because when we made our program, it was a sort of a contingency point, whether we'd do a pass or fail with an algorithm, or we'd agree with a cut-off score of 70, 80%, and how you deal with that. We went with the algorithm, with a pass or fail, with an OSCE, but what will the ELSO endorse in that, that specific, exactly?
Yeah, and so to clarify one point is that ELSO certification will, right now we have the knowledge exam, but the next iteration of the certification will include both. Mm-hmm. We would like both, but we didn't want to necessarily wait. There's, you know, it's always a work in progress, and as time goes on, we know that this will change and adapt to the needs. So it won't be a separate certification, it'll be wrapped in all together so that there'll be a didactic component and a psychomotor component. And since we know that in-person simulation, people can't fly from all over the world to one location, which goes back to the endorsement, and Build an Amazing course will give you the rubric and the outline of how to do that, and the checklist and that you would use. And then details are coming as to how we would train the trainers and to score the checklists, and then the people who are working specifically on that. For the knowledge assessment, we're going to end up doing an Anghoff, and we're analyzing all of the data that are coming in now, and and making adjustments to the test as needed. We're using a lot of the expertise from MBME with National Board of Medical Examiners. It is in the United States, but it's a really pretty standard approach to higher stakes exams.
All right, thank you.
Good morning, my name is Jan from Loma Linda. I have two questions. The first question is, what did your shopping list look like for Home Depot, and how did you Jimmy rig the mannequin?
This is a long story. We will tell you after, during break, okay? But also we published one article about how we manage, how we create our ECMO simulator with low-cost simulation equipment, and this is not so difficult.
I hope low cost wasn't 3 million. I hope it was a little less than that.
Yeah, this is the huge difference. $10 and 3 million.
So there will be the time. Of course, we'll share with our concept for that cheap and very not expensive, but easy to prepare the simulation line.
When we've thought about our project for physicians, the idea was that all of the courses for participants will be free. And this is actually the cost from our side. That's almost 3 million. But we start everything with low-cost simulation.
And my second question is for an ELSO endorsed center with training programs, where could we find the list that we would need to complete or to be able to achieve that?
That's on our website. So if you actually go under ELSO, same spot that actually Janelle was pointing to, that you go under education, there's an endorsement application, has a very involved list of what we're looking for. There's an Appendix A and Appendix 1 and 2. 1 has all the core curriculum and learning objectives, so it's all the topics, learning objectives. And then Appendix 2 is the core SIMs or the essential SIMs that we were just talking about for the psychomotor skills. So right now, a course just needs to make sure that they integrate at least those 5 SIMs.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Tyler Van Dyke. I'm the medical director at Allegheny Health Network in Pittsburgh. I'm curious what you guys have thought about or done in regards to how the new certification will apply across job families, particularly in a setting of like varying caregiver models where, for example, we use a bedside nurse single caregiver model as compared to like the ECMO specialist model, and then like how will the objectives be different if they are different for like the bedside provider versus like your physicians or your medical directors that are making decisions about who's appropriate and those higher level decisions?
So you're asking about how the certification applies across different disciplines?
Yes.
Or across the team?
The same. So, I mean, multiple disciplines on the
Sure.
team. Is there going to be any difference in the certification between job families, or is it one size fits all?
Understood. So very early on, when ELSO Ed came together and identified the need for ECMO practitioner certification, a lot of time was initially spent on who are we going to define as the population, who is the ECMO practitioner. And the overwhelming majority of the group felt that it should apply to anyone who takes care of an ECMO patient. So early on, we decided it's not just for intensivists, it's not just for surgeons, it's not just for the bedside specialist. It's really a broad group. And the feeling was that we would try and define, if you're taking care of an ECMO patient, what is the minimum knowledge and skills required to take care of that patient, irrespective of your training, irrespective of your specialty or discipline. And so it's what we call the ECMO practitioner. So it is applicable to whoever takes care of the ECMO patient, and it's the same curriculum and the same certification. In terms of team, that's not something that we decided that we should get into, because obviously there's multiple different models that clearly work depending on the hospital, depending on the funds and the resources available. It really is just an individual practitioner certification.
Thank you.
Welcome.
And I think you bring up a really good point that the ECMO team is this, it keeps going and going and going. This certification process is kind of meant for that core ECMO group, but then, there's plenty of other people that are touching ECMO patients that this probably would be less useful, right? So if you have consultants in nephrology that are dialyzing these patients, or maybe a bedside nurse that has basic training on just when to clamp for an emergency, and then later a specialist or perfusionist comes. So we know there's a spectrum, but the intent is to say that we set this standard, and then you guys do what you want to. But we think that the core group of people running an ECMO program should have these skills, if that makes sense.
Great.
So Thank you for the presentation. Questions, right now, of course, there are some other courses besides the ELSO curriculum that you have. So how do you foresee this playing out? Will you be in competition with the other courses? One, because of course for the healthcare practices, it comes down to where do they get the training from? Then the other question is, there are a few courses which are run without also endorsement, and how do you foresee for those courses? Are you going to, say, mandate the other courses to seek also endorsement or things like that? Thank you.
So I think, yeah, no, definitely, we don't foresee we're big proponents of open access education. The only reason we have to even charge for some of the education is because it costs so much to build and we're not a for-profit entity. But the idea is that we put all of this work into developing a curriculum and then we publish it. It is open to say this is what we think is important, and we don't want you to have to reinvent the wheel with whatever educational endeavor you want to pursue. And then we set a standard and say, this is what all the experts think is important, and if you want to achieve this, then you go through the endorsement process, and then you have an endorsed course. So we want to basically this be a tool, definitely not in competition with or to try to surge above others, but to do the work for everyone so that we can basically enhance ECMO care globally as a leader and a parent entity for ECMO programs. And also we know, importantly, getting back to endorsement, that in-person training, it needs to be widely available and everywhere. So we want people to be able to access more of their local training program, and we're just hoping that the work we put into this will then give you that roadmap to say, great, I don't have to start from zero and build this huge thing. I can just jump into it, follow ELSO's guidance, and it'll make my life way easier.
My short impression is that ELSO is the most important regulator body, I think, in the extracorporeal or perfusion support. And it was very impressed or very important during pandemic time. The number of the ELSO centers increased from 700 up to more than 1,000. It was very important that everybody is looking for ELSO guidelines. Everybody try to treat the patient, to support the patient with ELSO guidelines. So I think that our education should be in standard with ELSO guidelines.
And ELSO is all of you, right? Yeah. So that's the beauty of it, is that we're just putting finding the expertise and looking at our membership and attendees and our ECMO community to build what you want and what you need.
Great. Well, I selfishly would love to have the whole pre-conference on education, but I know we have to move on. So thank you again to our morning speakers. Fantastic presentations.